Hello and welcome to Identity Office Hours. I'm your host, Mike Schwartz, founder of Glue. Today is episode 103. The topic is Passkey implementation does not equal Passkey adoption. Quick reminder, please follow us on LinkedIn. That helps support the live stream. Our guest today is Vincent Delietz, CTO and co-founder of Corbato. And our co-guest today is Andre Priebe, CTO of IC Consult, a very large access management consultancy in Europe. Welcome, guys.
Thank you very much.
Great to be here. Thank you.
So before we dive into this, maybe we could just do a quick round of intros. Andre, how did you find yourself as a CTO of IC Consult in IAM field?
Well, my journey started into the area of identity access management started 21 years ago. The reason for that was very simple. I was working with databases a lot before, relational databases, but also object-oriented databases. And then I learned, there are guys that work with hierarchical databases. We call them directory services. And that was a point in time I got into that business. But luckily, it changed a lot since these days. Even if directories still play a role, there are a lot of other things are happening right now. And I think Passkey are one exciting to talk about that topic together with you.
Cool. And Vincent, how'd you get here?
It's a very good question. Actually, did not start 21 years ago, only a couple of years ago. I was tasked at another software startup to implement authentication, OAuth based, and it took me, I think, almost 2 weeks, and made me think, actually, isn't there an easier way to authenticate in a passwordless way? Because I faced the issues with passwords also from the user side multiple times. That made me duck into WebAuthn specifications, and I thought, hey, this should be like an easy one. Let's give it a weekend or give it even an afternoon, and I should have the thing implemented. Fast forward a couple of years, we're still working on passkeys on WebAuthn, as it's a tremendously interesting space with a lot of benefits and also some challenges. And I'm more than happy now then to talk to you in this episode about how we can actually get the adoption for passkeys up.
Yeah, and actually, I really like the slides that you linked in the homework on the wiki page. And I always joke that something different happens in every episode. And so this is something I've never done before, but I actually want to show a demo because we talk about passkeys, but sometimes it's good to actually see an actual passkey workflow. So here's the first live Glue demo. This is a product we call Casa. It's a self-service portal for credential management. And what I want to do is I want to add a Google Chrome passkey provider as a passkey. So I have a new passkey. I'm going to hit register. Ready? Okay, follow the instructions. So I don't see my mechanism here. I'm going to have to hit save another way. I don't see it here, but if I scroll down, here's my Chrome profile. Mike, yes, that's the one I want to use. There's my credential and give it a name. Right. And so now I'm done. Here's my provider. Anyway, I just wanted to level set with you guys, an actual flow, and maybe get your quick feedback. Vincent, why don't I put you on the spot, because I know you have a ton of implementation experience. What are your thoughts about that process and that user experience?
I mean, it's I would say straightforward, but I see some room for improvement, especially when you're working with passkeys in the consumer space. Maybe you've seen it yourself. You had to click like 2 or 3 times on different menus, then deselect your initial suggestion for a passkey provider and then provider name. So there's some room for improvement, but in general, I think the flow, as you have showcased, it's quite easy. You just click on login and then you scan your Touch ID, and that's it. And this is actually how I imagine the future of authentication for at least consumers will look like.
Okay, Andre, I'm going to have to let you just respond to that.
Yes, well, so of course, it always is a question to what do you compare flow? Yeah? And when it comes to usability, but also, of course, security aspects. Okay, security aspects are maybe not so important in that step right now. But I think it's quite easy. And for a professional, I would say, hey, perfect. Let's compare that to things like smart card enrollments, many years ago. It's so convenient, easy, fast, and Vincent, I completely second your statement. That's how authentication or enrollment for authentication looks like. In mind, if now a non-IT person has to do things like, hey, I have to select something scrolling down, and I'm just not have any clue what is happening there right now, then it might even be a challenge, right? So it's
I have to admit, I'm getting a little older, and that first dialogue screen that they presented to me, it was too small for me to actually read. So that was so I didn't feel like it was so great as a 55-year-old. But okay, so Vincent, why is passkey adoption remain low if that user experience is so good? Why is and what Let me qualify this. I think actually I'm seeing good adoption of passkeys in consumer. I went to log into QuickBooks; they supported it, and more websites are supporting passkeys. On the enterprise side, maybe not so much. And so, Vincent, maybe you could hone in on a little bit about why you think adoption is low for enterprise.
Yeah, I think a big part of the low passkey adoption is simply the normal adoption curve for anything that replaces a standard like passwords that has been around for decades. And I mainly see two major issues with the low adoption. And the first one is awareness and understanding, and the second is more about like a chicken and egg problem. So about the awareness and understanding, passkeys are a fundamentally new concept, I would say, for many users, especially for non-technical users. And even for technical users, there's still confusion what passkeys are, how they differ from passwords, how a security key actually compares to a software or sync passkey, and how they interoperate across different devices and platforms. So first of all, we need to get like a common understanding and some awareness for the topic itself, because it's still, you're maybe behind the early adopter stage, but it's still quite new in the adoption curve. And the second one is, I think end users, be it consumers or be it in the workforce, they don't see passkeys widely offered, so they don't ask for it. And businesses or enterprises, they don't offer passkeys because the employees or consumers, they do not yet demand it that high. And also, it's quite uncertain how an ROI for a passkey project actually looks like. So again, it's a chicken and egg problem. So you need to start somewhere. You need to offer it to your users, independently if it's a consumer or in the workforce area. Because once you implement them and do it right, then I haven't seen that many complaints, and it's actually always a better choice, at least for user experience, than what's currently in place, I would say.
Andre, why do you think adoption is low or lower in the enterprise? Not zero, but yeah.
Yeah. So maybe first a short comment on mentioning it should be easier everything what is out there. I completely agree. Unfortunately, that is sometimes not the case. So I would like to give one example in which I have to say passkeys are, unfortunately, less convenient and slower than a password for me. It's a very, very large, famous e-commerce site. I'm quite sure everybody of you used. If you decide to enroll passkeys instead of a password, then still you get your step-up authentication challenged for one-time password after that. So in the password world, my password manager is entering the password automatically, and the one-time password is already copied into the clipboard, and I can paste it right away.
Yeah.
For passkeys, passkey is going fast, and I have to open the password manager, copy the one-time password out of it, and paste it into the website. So it's even so that's for me an example how you should not do it. It should be easier and more convenient for the end user in order to get that kind of adaptation. But looking, I think that the reason is based on the nature of passkeys is, I would say, primarily born with a customers in mind. Even if I go for a security key, the purpose is I have one key and I can have couple of credentials on that from different identity providers, from my corporate keys, but others as well. And compared to things like smart cards, and nobody likes it. I don't want to make any statements saying, hey, let's go for a smart card, but they are really built with the purpose of being managed and provided to the end users. And in the other situation, I have to have, I put responsibility to the end user that often is not familiar with any IT security topics. And I think that is really causing issues here. The other area is, unfortunately, the support. When it comes to the software side or the ecosystem side, all current browsers are supporting passkeys and all operating systems that are supported. So that's not a point. But unfortunately, we still come around with fat client applications that using embedded browsers or VPN clients with embedded browsers. And then they are often struggling with passkeys, and this really hurts a lot. And that's also a reason for lower adoption, because with other technologies, typically you can bring that to life more easily.
Vincent, I'm going to put you in the hot seat and ask you a question that we didn't prepare. Is it possible, because of the challenges around variations in the browsers for, let's say, something like a workforce passkey implementation, that we might see more adoption of FIDO for mobile applications, where they have 100% control of the user experience, and now the FIDO methods are available at the operating system level, so we don't need that embedded browser anymore. We can just do the FIDO directly with the operating system. So do you think maybe mobile apps is a better area for FIDO to perhaps expand into before it tries to tackle workforce?
Great question. So I think, from the data that we see about passkey readiness and then also about the actual user adoption, if you're on a mobile device, be it iOS or be it Android, there's usually more adoption in general and more passkey readiness on mobile devices compared to Windows or Mac OS. And I think the nature that it's really embedded into the system, that you don't need to download anything, into the operating system, you don't need to download anything. It's offered by default. That's just a huge advantage over anything else where you either need to download an app or where you need to actually send out hardware generators, hardware tokens. And I think it also feels more natural for most non-technical users who use Face ID to unlock their device already, or they've been using it for years already. And most of them, they don't even understand actually what passkeys are from a technical or from a security point of view. They just think they use Face ID to log into their applications, to log into websites and other services. So I think this will be like the initial start on the consumer side. Mobile heavy applications, they have, I would say, 95% passkey readiness or even more. And that will take some time until the workforce area can catch up. But I think it's the same with like many other applications. People or consumers, they learn a new technology, they see how convenient it is. And at one point in time, they will just demand it also for their workforce login. But I agree 100% with Andre that there are so many edge cases where passkeys still need to offer some kind of additional features or some kind of workaround, because in my opinion, the passkeys that we know, Sync One software ones, they're really good for consumers today. For workforce, there's still some work to do.
Andre, I wanted to ask you if, so I have a Apple account. I have an Apple, let's say, login at apple.com. I have a Gmail login. I also have Apple iCloud Keychain as my passkey provider, and I have a Google passkey provider. Is this idea of passkey providers not really well understood by consumers and end users? Like, how are they're supposed to use their iCloud keychain account or credentials to log into apple.com? Do they really understand that? And do you think that's part of what's behind it, maybe challenges for passkey adoption?
Yeah, I would agree that this is a challenge of the for the adoption. I'm not sure how large that impact is, because what, from my experience, a larger part of the user understands now is that they can use their Google Password Manager or iCloud capabilities in order to synchronize their passwords. Yeah? And I think the FIDO Alliance did a good job when it really comes to explaining passkeys as a replacement for passwords by assuming, hey, okay, then this is also synchronized via my iCloud keychain or via my password manager. I think that's something what is going into the right direction. But of course, the majority of the user doesn't have a good understanding how that works, especially things like cross-device flow. Hey, why should I use my iPhone to enroll my Chrome browser on my Windows notebook? Yeah. And because otherwise I cannot participate with my Apple products. That's something what I'm quite sure the majority of users does not understand, right? So that's something that is causing challenges. But when it comes to the password, we have a kind of 50, 60, 70 years of learning experience already. For pass, typically less than 2 years for end users. So I think that's something where we need more time and offering it proactively and convincing user and providing benefits if they use passkeys in order to get that knowledge into a broader number of end users.
Vincent, what do you think on this topic? The fact that you have a Google social account and Google's your passkey provider, is that actually, do you think people understand that, or is it just incredibly confusing? And is that really the problem we're trying to deal with? We're trying to introduce this new idea. There's this thing called a passkey provider, and people don't understand that. They don't even know what an identity provider is. So the idea that where are my keys really stored? I'm not sure people really understand that. And then we're asking them to adopt this thing that they don't really understand.
Yeah, it's a great question. When we look at the data from like large scale B2C deployments, we see that most users they have only one ecosystem. They're only in, let's say, in the iOS ecosystem, maybe even in a second or third, but it's very, very rare. So for most users, it feels quite natural to just use the passkey and they don't question where it's stored. They see it on an iPhone, hey, it's iCloud keychain, I've already have my passwords in there and other data. So they just keep using it. There are situations, of course, where you have an iPhone and a Windows laptop and something or some third-party password manager. But I think
have a Mac and an Android phone.
You have a Mac and an Android phone. So yeah, technically you can use the Google Password Manager, which syncs across operating systems. I mean, it's quite recent. They just introduced this feature over the past, 6 months. And I think the whole industry, the whole space will converge into like the seamless cross-platform, cross-ecosystem, cross-operating system availability of passkeys. But in my opinion, users, they just log in. And if you are on a new device, let's say you have enrolled your passkey on your smartphone, on your iPhone, and then you go to a Windows laptop, the initial step up might still be the conventional login, but then you should offer the user also to create a second passkey quite intelligently on this other device. And by managing all the different passkeys across the different devices of a user, you can actually make sure that the users at one point in time can log in from any device with the passkey which is available. But I think it all boils down to your system's intelligence. And ideally, it should be built in a way, and I'm a strong believer in that you should not make the user think. Because users, they just want to log in. Talking about regular users, they don't care that much about where my passkey is stored. They just want to log in. And if it's more convenient, that's great. And if it's also more secure, which passkeys are compared to passwords, then I think it's even better. So from my point of view, do the implementation and right. That's also the title of this episode, but actually make sure that users can adopt it on all their devices. That's then the second part of the story. And there you need to make sure that the implementation boosts the adoption. And then examples like Andreas mentioned with the large e-commerce retailer, change their implementation in a way to make it more user-friendly.
Okay, so now I'm going to throw in another element, which is wallets. We have this new type of credential, and a wallet is basically your ability to assert that you can protect a private key, just like a passkey. It's also on your phone or your device and copied, I guess, among your devices. Yeah, somehow. But we're asking consumers and we're telling everyone, we need digital wallets. We're not going to use smart cards anymore. We're going to use digital wallets. You've been promising this for years in Europe. So you're trying to get consumers educated and excited about wallets. And the wallet as credential, maybe what's the difference between a wallet and a passkey? When do I use one or the other? They're both basically these credentials on my phone. They both authenticate me. Is the wallet is the sort of the wallet technology just going to finally overwhelm consumers with, like, they didn't even understand passwords and now we're going to dump wallets on them? Andre?
Yeah, so my take on that is that wallets. So my expectation is the wallet will, from a consumer perspective, be a different thing. It's not a thing for just authenticating to a service I want to access very fast, but it's something that is used during the enrollment to provide other claims, like my age or address, things like that, and also explore for a wallet-based authentication can be very good from a user experience point of view. I don't expect that this will compete with Passkey when it comes to simplicity. So just fingerprint on the reader and I'm in, and don't have to select, okay, what claims do I want to provide, and these kind of things. So I expect it will be kind of different use cases. It will be for sure improving a very strong area, but for the day-to-day authentication to access my service, I don't expect a wallet to be used. And therefore, it's really the mobile driver, the digital version of my driver license, of my passport, of my ID card, and not my replacement for the password.
I don't know. Vincent, what do you think?
I actually agree with Andre on this one. So I think the use cases are just different. With wallets, according to my understanding, you just prove that you are, I don't know, the owner of a certain digital ID, of your passport, of your mobile, or of a driver's license. But I still think they can coexist. You can even maybe think of scenarios where you can use a passkey to authenticate and get access to a wallet. But again, if you're online shopping, if you're on Amazon or whatever website and you just want to log into your Amazon account, I don't think that you will be using your wallet every time, but rather it's then the Amazon passkey that will actually grant you access to your Amazon account.
So if you have a cloud wallet, you might use your passkey to log into your cloud wallet. That use case is clear. But if I have a mobile wallet, would I use my passkey potentially to log into my mobile wallet? Vincent, is that what you're thinking?
I could think of that. I mean, I haven't looked too much into the connection of passkeys and wallets, but I think there are definitely also scenarios on your mobile devices where you can make use of the passkey to get access to the wallet. But yeah, again, it's something where I haven't taken too much time.
I mean, you're saying that passkeys are for user authentication, and this is a critical user authentication thing, logging into my wallet so I can assert my identity card, right? This is why I think, maybe we're pushing for adoption when we're telling users, okay, this new wallet thing's happening, and yeah, somehow it intersects with the passkeys, where we're not sure how. But I mean, Andre, any thoughts on how this lack of clarity maybe is just maybe it makes sense for enterprises to be on the sidelines here.
Well, so intersection of, I expect that for holder bindings, biometrics will likely be most useful most of the time. But I think when it comes to use cases for enterprises, I can imagine a lot of things in which wallets and passkeys work hand in hand together. So supply chain, securing this. If we at IC Consult provide employee ID cards to our employees, this can be used then for the onboarding process at our clients. And then during that onboarding, I can provide not just my name, but also a company I'm working for. Then I get a passkey, and then the services on a day-to-day base. And that would be, from my point of view, the kind of scenario I expect to see very often in the near to midterm future, I would say.
Right. And I just want to get a quick, so you're talking about like maybe a device like this, a passkey with a biometric reader. And so you're an enterprise where you used to maybe issue an enterprise card, but now you're going to issue a different type of credential tied to a biometric, which could be used for digital authentication. Is that what you meant?
No. My idea for that kind of use case is having a digital employee card in my wallet on my phone.
Oh, okay.
Not having that kind of very nice device you might not carrying around your neck. So I don't believe that this is a future for.
Okay, so you're saying. I just wasn't seeing. So you're saying that basically the passkey, the enterprises will start issuing credentials like workforce credentials for presentation or to provide as evidence of access to something. Yeah, I think we're a long way off from that, honestly, but we'll see. We are seeing some supply chains start issuing special tokens for giving access to data. But I don't know. I think we're a little far away from companies issuing credentials like this. We'll see. Okay. Well, what are companies doing today, Vincent? Without this adoption, there's still regulatory requirements for MFA. What's the alternative, and what do you see in the real world?
Good question. So, I mean, in general, the alternatives they are what's been around for years already. I think it depends a bit on the industry that you're looking at. If you're looking into like the financial sector, or if you're a bank, then I see mostly you install the native application of a bank on your phone, or use some time-based OTP, or with the native application, you use push notification as a second factor. However, for most applications, it's still the password, which is the first factor, and doesn't matter what kind of the second factor is, be it SMS, be it TOTP, be it the authentication via push, it's still phishable. But again, there's also, especially in Europe, there's regulation in place which does not favor passkey or software sync passkeys yet, and this is something that might change in the future. It's not yet clear. But I think right now it's quite common to have OTPs, and yeah, I would say OTPs is the most common form next to push notification in terms of MFA for the consumer.
You mean space. OTP like TOTP, like an authenticator app?
Yeah, via an authenticator app, or OTPs that are still sent via SMS. I think it's still quite common, even though most of the people are aware of the security issues. But yeah, this is unfortunately still the reality.
Andre, you mentioned one thing previously about you were presented your passkey, but then you were asked for your OTP, and you were annoyed by this, rightfully so. However, passkeys, a passkey held by a passkey provider like Google or Apple, that's only considered one factor. It's only considered control of your account. So the prompt for the second factor actually can make sense. And here at Glue, we look at authentication as a workflow, and we have a low-code flow manager to say, based on decision trees and decisions, like when you present what. But I could see that being a logical presentation, because if you presented a shared passkey, that passkey is on all your devices. Therefore, the key is not unique, so it doesn't uniquely identify you. And they might have given you that prompt because they're like, hey, I know it's this is the passkey, but I still need a second factor here. Can you talk about that, and why that? What are some of the implications?
Mike, please don't tell Amazon, but my token, it's bound either. It's also in the same password manager. Okay, so anyhow, now of course I understand.
I haven't been able to delete my old OTP devices in Amazon. Like I delete them, or but I stopped using them, but they're still out there. No, so Amazon, especially their consumer-facing authentication, it's not actually. I prefer GitHub and Google, but this OTP, it is still a second factor. The second factor doesn't always have to be stronger. You present a smart card and then your PIN number, right? The PIN number is weaker, but it adds a second factor. So,
but my point is the passkey and the secret of the one-time password. It's exactly the same place. But anyhow, no. In general, I of course I understand that, especially what for instance, Vincent, as you mentioned in PSD 2, 3, we still have the situation that we need to have that kind of true hardware binding of a credential that cannot be cloned. And in that case, of course, I would say standard approach nowadays is really having that is really bound to that device. With the drawback that push notification is working very well in phishing scenarios. But still, that is I think that's the reality. I think last year NIST made, from my perspective, a very good decision in giving the synchronized passkeys authentication assurance level 2, showing that even if this is clonable by nature, it is reflecting the fact that it is adding a different dimension to the security that is very, very, very relevant in the real life, and that is a vulnerability to phishing. And I think that's a fact that we have to take into consideration, not sticking on an approach in which we say, hey, there are the 3 categories for authentication factors, and that's the only thing that counts. No, there's another aspect that counts as well, and that is a huge problem of phishing, and we really have to design that into our understanding of the threats we are dealing with, and to mitigate the risk related to that. And I think that's the way we have to go, and that also will of course push passkey adoption forward.
Vincent, you've been around for a long time, so you have experienced some of the changes, but there were some breaking changes introduced in FIDO, I think, in 2022. And do you think that at that time, perhaps the technology, like people were somewhat hesitant, because it's like you see this thing moving ahead, from strength to strength, and then you're like, oh no, we're going to have to rewrite the whole thing, and everything you wrote before is broken now, and you have to rewrite it. That breaks trust with sort of the ecosystem. Do you think that that's had an impact, maybe a negative impact on or slowed adoption today?
Yes, to a certain degree, but again, here you have to distinguish between workforce and consumer authentication. I think pre-2022, in a consumer space, passkeys or FIDO2 wasn't really a thing. It was just hardware keys, hardware security keys, and no consumer actually, or especially no non-technical consumer owns a hardware security key. So for enterprises, that had definitely be an issue, because now you have to think, okay, how do you deal with synced passkeys, and how do you deal with device-bound hardware security keys? And also the standard is more developing in a way which is more leaning towards synced passkeys, just due to the nature of Google and Apple pushing for synced passkeys. For consumers, I think it's the best thing that could happen because passkeys are the only viable phishing-resistant MFA method, I would say, that you can roll out on scale, also to non-technical users. And I think the change in 2022, it's kind of the inflection point and actually made FIDO2 or the term passkeys popular among people. And if you even ask friends who are not working in tech, most of them have heard of a passkey just due to the large digital brands like Snapchat, Amazon, PayPal, who all have started to roll out passkeys. And I expect that there will be a point where all these people will then demand from other applications, from their banks, from insurances, from public sector organizations, to also offer the convenience and the security of passkeys. So I think 2022 was an important point for the development of WebAuthn, FIDO2, and passkeys. For enterprises and organizations more relying on hardware security keys, it's more challenging now dealing with the changes. But for the consumer sector, it's definitely been a good thing.
So the consumer sectors didn't notice. All the geeks like us are pissed, but no one cares. Yeah. So Andre, where have you seen this actually like succeed? Can you point to any cases where you can say, well, this was the business thing that was driving them to passkeys, and they did it, and it actually achieved their business goal?
Yeah, well, so in the consumer area, I would say there are, of course, a couple of implementations out there in our customer landscape. But honestly, I'm not aware that anybody is forcing the end users to go into that direction or really giving them good incentives of moving to passkeys. Therefore, the adoption rate is, I would say, okayish. It's not really good, based on the fact that passkeys are more secure and more convenient than passwords. Based on that fact, it's not good. But having in mind that we have to come over a habit, we trained users. Hey, you have your password, you have to make it better, stronger, and so on for so many decades now. I think having that in mind, it is good because passkeys are around just for 2 years and it's already there at a lot of places and used from the kind of early adapters at least. And I think from that point of view, it's going absolutely in the right direction. When it comes to the business perspective, there's, from my point of view, one challenge that makes it difficult, and one recommendation how to tackle that. Yeah, so will there be a lower rate of friction or a better conversion rate based on offering passkeys? Honestly, I don't take that one. But when it comes to mitigating risks, clearly yes. Yeah, with every single account takeover that happens for your consumers, there's a risk associated with that. And with passkeys, you can reduce that risk significantly. And I would go for that kind of approach to explain the business case. It's really not about reducing hard costs. No, it's about reducing the costs of risks. And that's something what is obviously what you can explain very well and where you can provide evidence around that.
Vincent, where have you seen passkey? What were some of the business drivers for a successful passkey implementation that you've seen, especially if you've seen one in the enterprise space?
So, I mean, in general, you have to look at passkeys, and if you look at the ROI of passkeys from different angles, there's definitely the risk component that Andre just mentioned, or the fraud reduction. And in any case of fraud or data breach is always also associated to a financial loss. You can argue if there's a benefit in terms of better conversion rates. I think that depends on your use case and the industry that you're in and what the previous login flow had be. Where I see the biggest driver, and which is kind of immediately measurable, is in terms of how many users are actually calling you to reset their accounts for, I don't know, can be a password reset, can be MFA reset, and the data is quite clear, and I've seen it myself. If you look at it and if you implement passkeys, the number of calls for account resets will go down. And if you then also look how much one call actually costs a company between $50 and $70, it's quite easily measurable how much you can save. On top of that, but it's more like a consumer thing, if you have MFA implemented with SMS OTP, with every SMS, there's a fee associated that you have to pay to the telecoms. And then you can replace this SMS with a passkey. You don't have the transactional cost. And this will also actually grant you from day one cost savings. And depending on how many users adopt passkeys, coming back to the title of this show, you can start saving more. So the higher the adoption, the more users use the created passkeys to log in instead of using an SMS OTP, the more you can save. And I think this is, from a pure financial point of view, quite interesting, that passkeys not only are more secure, not only are more user-friendly, but if implemented right and if you're in the right scenario, you can easily save on money. And this is something that especially CFOs, who naturally are quite hard to convince in terms of adding new features or new and simpler logins to a solution, is quite nice, because that's something that is often overlooked, but actually provides really good benefits in terms of financial improvement and getting a really good ROI on your passkey implementation.
Okay, last question before we go to the last thoughts. So is the passkey authentication gives you a lot of data about, is this a device-bound key? Is it a shared key? And that data potentially is input to policy. Maybe you have a policy that says, well, this transaction you can do, but only with, a device-bound key, like one of these things, a Pwn off pad plus. And I worked it in twice. And so, but basically, like, the attestation from the authenticator itself is input to policy. However, our policy management infrastructure, is it really up to deal with the richness of the information that's potentially coming about the authentication today? And is the lack of adoption of passkeys more just like a symptom of the failure of our ability to do proper authorization in the application layer? That's the last question for you, Andre, and then we'll go to the last thought.
What I haven't seen in the real life, that somewhere down the stream, that information is really used about the attestation, but typically at the very beginning for the mapping to a defined authentication assurance level. That doesn't have to be the same level as NIST, but something specified for the enterprise to really control, hey, what do we need for that kind of application, or for that kind of user group, or for that kind of activity? It has to be our level 5 or our level 2, whatever. And mapping at an early stage to that particular dedicated level. That's something that works well from my point of view. There might be more sophisticated approaches with a growing maturity, also about tools and making that kind of attestation information available for sophisticated policy decisions. But honestly, there are so many other areas, I would say, where improvement is required when it comes to fine-grained policies for authentication, authorization. I don't have the feeling that this is number one priority for the adoption.
Okay, the pigeons are flying, so let's switch into last thoughts. We'll start with you, Vincent. What should listeners do next?
I think from what we've seen with working on large scale B2C deployments and passkeys, users are ready, and devices are also ready in 2025. There's still things to improve, but you need to start somewhere. And I think passkeys are the way we all will be logging in a couple of years. So start today collecting passkeys, start offering it now, and then gradually roll out passkeys to your entire user base. If you're interested in how you can do that by getting like a high adoption, then feel free to reach out. We have quite some insights and data how you can do that, and also ways how you can implement it to get 10 times higher adoption. And I think there's no better time to start now. And I just want to encourage anyone who's thinking about passkeys, do it. It's a great thing for the enterprise, but also for the consumers, with tons of benefits.
So, Andre, we will definitely be seeing you at EIC. I saw that you're speaking a couple of times, but any last thoughts or action items for this live stream for our guests?
Yeah. So in case you need motivation, there are so many challenges related to Passkey, but you need motivation to get into it. Then think a little bit about Gen AI used for spear phishing, making these kind of attacks so much more scalable. Think about the improvements we had during the last 12 months in Gen AI, the efficiency gain based on DeepSeek R1, for instance. Yeah? So that is getting so scalable for the attackers. The costs are going down so significantly if you're not investing into phishing resistant authentication methods, then well, you have very hard times in front of you. So I think that's, from my point of view, a very good reason to look deep into passkeys and make it happen.
My best piece of security advice for the audience is don't click on that email.
Good one.
And with that, we will call it an episode. I'd just like to remind people, please follow the live stream on LinkedIn. The next episode is PAM 101 with Reiner, a previous Identerati guest who was unhappy with my summary of PAM as just failed authorization. So he's going to educate me about what PAM does and why it's needed. And so with that, thank you, guests, and thank you, audience, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you very much for having us here. Mike, it was a pleasure. Vincent, it was a pleasure.
Likewise. Thank you both for having this great conversation and looking forward to the next episode.